Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Albums and Memories, where I talk about albums I have and the memories they gave me. Now today we're going to talk about Chaos's Yes and Green Day's 21st Century Breakdown. Two albums I bought when I was in my first year of college, and they are very good albums for what they are. Not as strong as their previous albums, but I still like them. Now, first we're going to talk about Chaos's Yes. Now, I actually had some high expectations about this, mostly because, at the time I thought Atlantis Hymns for Disco was good, but not better than Joyful Rebellion. Yeah, I thought it was going to be actually better than that. And the first song I heard from it was 4321. That was the first single off this album. And I'm like, okay, this is actually really kick ass. This is going to be a really kick ass album to listen to. And at first, I really liked this album all the way through. I remember listening to it while I was playing Enter the Matrix for the PS2, and it was actually really good for the most part. I listened to Burning Bridges occasionally. It was on the radio. I wish I knew Natalie Portman was actually a good song, and I remember listening to the CD, and I'm like, oh, this is really good. And I remember liking it at first, and then as time went on, I started listening to Atlantis Hymns for Disco, and I realized that that was not only my favorite album, better than this, but actually it held up more than I thought it would be. And this is good. This is actually a really good album at first. Like I like Zamboni, I like Desperate, I like Burning Bridges, I love Uptown Girl. I remember listening to I Wish I Knew Natalie Portman, and I got so much joy out of it. And then 4321 I liked. And then for some reason the second half it kind of what's it called? It kind of lost a little bit of steam for me for some reason. I don't know what happened. Um, but I actually did end up, and I still do like this, even though out of the four albums I have Chaos's first four albums. This is probably my second least favorite because the other two albums are really well put together. But no, this one is actually really good at first, but it's what it is. I still really do like Chaos, and I remember showing this to my dad, the cover, and he's like, "What is that?" And he's like, that's Chaos." Like, why is his hair so long? It's because it's like he's been growing it since 2004, I like to say, and actually, it's actually still a really good album to listen to. It still blends the pop, rock, and hip hop elements in there. It's just that it's more pronounced. It leans more toward a little bit of rock than that, but at the same time, I still really like this album. And I remember the memory I have from this album is just listening to it and then slowly going back to his last album for some reason, and I'm like, oh, this is actually a good album. It's still a good album. It's just that the first half is really good, but then it just kind of the second half is really good. It's pretty much like the same elsewhere from Gnarls Barkley. The first half is amazing. First half is good, really really good, but the second half is not as good. Like it falls off for some reason, but it's still a good album. And yeah, it's underappreciated. It's not as good as his last two albums, but those two albums are really hard to top. So there's that. But if check it out if you like what you know. Like the second half not as good, but I still like it. And the second album I want to talk about is Green Day's 21st Century Breakdown. Um, when I bought this album, it was like a snowstorm, like a lot of snow was coming, and I still liked it. It came after American Idiot, and this was the third, I think, yeah, it was the third album I got from Green Day. First one was American Idiot, and then the second one was Dookie, and then this one I really enjoyed because I like Know Your Enemy at the time. I'm like, oh, this is a kick-ass song. Yeah, I actually still like it. And then 21 Guns is my least favorite song by Green Day because it tries so hard to be patriotic and all that. It tries so hard to be like how Boulevard of Broken Dreams was, where Boulevard of Broken Dreams was okay. It was a great song, but they didn't need to. They didn't. I feel like they didn't actually have to try for that to be a big single, but it was a big single. I like to quote that song a lot whenever I make fun of something. That's a really good song, but 21 Guns, I thought it was okay at first, but then upon repeated listenings to it, it was like, ah, man, I don't like this anymore. Because I remember when my sister wanted to borrow the CD just for one song of 21 Guns, just to like sing it for a quiet, like for a choir thing. I'm like, no, that's not how that song works. It's just a not so good song. And I even told my boyfriend he likes 20. He told me that he listened to 21 Guns or heard about it. I'm like, that song is not a good song. I'm sorry, but 21 Guns is one of their least favorite songs. And I remember listening to this album over and over again when I was either like when it was around that period after my second year of college, and when I started working, and I listened to this album over and over again. And I just read fan fiction. No social media. Didn't use Facebook or Twitter or any of that. I just went on fanfiction.net and listened to this. And I thought at the time, I thought it was the best. Like this album was better than American Idiot. I granted, like this is probably my fifth. Let me see, fifth or sixth favorite Green Day album, and even at the time when I thought this was my favorite, this is better than American Idiot. I always, no matter what, always skip 21 Guns. The rest of the album was good. I always skip 21 Guns, and every time I hear this album, I haven't listened to this album in like 11 months when I was right here, or at the beginning of the year, I was right here listening to this while I was writing a story, which is the first draft, but whatever. Um, I haven't listened to that, and I thought this was a good album. It's still a good album. It's just not as good as American Idiot, or the albums that came before that. You know, Nimrod and Warning. But we'll get to that when we'll get to that. But no matter what, I always skip 21 Guns. It's still a good album. Is it as good as American Idiot? No, it's better than the trilogy, that's for sure. And I remember like again, this is a really good This is a really good album. Just a little bit bloated. Yeah, sure, it is bloated, but I still really enjoyed what it was and was trying to do, even though it wasn't running too long. And again, 21 Guns, but it's still a good album to listen to. Whenever I have time, whenever I want to like listen to something while I'm reading fan fiction, when it's not like anything else, I just put on this and just let the memories go through. Again, good album. Very. Uh, Still, I'll don't have many memories from college, unlike this album. I don't have many albums from college. Just me being in this room, watching, like, reading fan fiction, commenting on fan fiction, replying back to fan fiction artists or authors, and just doing what I want to do while listening to this album over and over again. And I remember, like, flat out playing Pacemaker and on this, or trying to, but I kind of got lost interest. And I thought Pacemaker and Horseshoes and Hand Grenades were the best songs, and they kind of still are. I still like them. And East Jesus Nowhere is good too. But eventually I had to make room for other CDs, and I put the CD right back in. One of these days I'll listen to all the Green Day albums I have. The only albums I don't have on the trilogy, which I don't want, are the first two albums, which were Kerplunk, and that their very first one, which was a very, very long title. But as for now, I still like this album. Again, it's a hard. American Idiot was a hard album to top, and so was Joy for Rebellion and Atlanta Sins for Disco. Later, as I realized, two very solid albums, just not as good as the previous outing. And that's it for another episode of Albums and Memories. Thank you, and I'll see you when I have something to come up with in this channel. So thank you. Take care.